Hi, my name's Sheehan, and today I'd like to talk about One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. And I'd like to go through this short novel, exploring its structure as well as some of the themes that crop up in it. Now, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich is autobiographical. Solzhenitsyn spent many years in the Gulag, including Karaganda in northern Kazakhstan. That's the camp that this novel describes. All told, he was in camps for 8 years between 1945 and 1953. Why was he in the camps? Well, he was charged with making derogatory remarks about Stalin. So Solzhenitsyn, you could say, is Ivan Denisovich Zhukov in this novel. So the book, if you could just sum it up in a sentence, is really a day in the life of somebody unjustly imprisoned in a Gulag work camp in Stalinist USSR. In terms of its structure, there are no chapters as such in this book, but you can discern 5 parts to Zhukov's day. Ivan Denisovich is always referred to as Zhukov in the novel, that's his surname. His actual prisoner number, which is referred to by the guards, is S854. Anyway, basically at the beginning, Zhukov wakes up at dawn in the winter in the snowy steppes of Kazakhstan. He is freezing, as you'd imagine, and he feels ill, and he misses the reveille because he feels feverish. He doesn't feel well at all. He's punished for this, and he has to clean out some guardhouse, I think it is, with a bucket and mop, and then he goes to the infirmary to see if he can be excused for work due to his illness, and sadly he isn't. So part 2, Zhukov stoically joins the others. His team is the 104th, they're called, and they have to journey towards this power station to basically finish its construction. So in the second part of this novel, Zhukov and his fellow campmates are counted in the morning muster, and they begin their march to the power station, which is thoroughly miserable. They have this guy, I think he's called Volkovoy, who is this particularly nasty guard who is around as they're making their way to maltreat the prisoners. Part 3 is the heart of the novel. It's all about Zhukov and the rest of the 104th, led by Tyurin, who is like the team leader, who everybody in the 104th respects, including Zhukov. He's like a father figure to them. They have to move these blocks up upper level in this power station. They have some food for the kind of that midday, which isn't much, but Zhukov manages to get an extra portion. We'll talk about food in a bit. And then they build a wall, zealously, it has to be said, despite the cold and the lack of sustenance. Certainly Zhukov does anyway. The 4th part is about the journey back as they muster and count the workers again, count the zeks as they're called. They noticed someone's missing and they have to go and find them, and all the other men are just complaining because they're stuck in the freezing cold. They just want to get back to base, to the camp, and eventually they make their way back. And finally, after they come back to the camp, Zhukov gets a parcel for one of the higher class inmates who doesn't have to do such arduous work as the others. He's called Caesar, and Zhukov helps him out because Caesar gives him like extra food from these parcels he receives, these food parcels. There's chaos for the evening meal outside the mess hall as all the people try and clamour to get in and have their skilly, and then finally Zhukov dwells on the day in his bed, and it has to be said he's in rather high spirits. He thinks it's been a good day. So in terms of the themes of this book, you know, it's about communism, of course, Stalin, cold, forced labour, but there's a bit about religion in there as well. But I think the two primary themes really are that of food and work. Zhukov just loves his food, as you'd imagine. You know, if you're starving in a camp, I imagine. But for him, food is just such a joy. It's something to relish. Every crumb is something to be savoured. And, you know, he saves his part of his bread ration in his mattress. He sews it up in his mattress so in the morning, so he's got something to look forward to at the end of the day. His life revolves around getting extra bits of food here and there by doing little jobs for people, including Caesar, this kind of upper-class Muscovite imprisoned there. He knows the ropes and the ways to get extra rations if they're available. And when he has his food, he just makes the most of that. He says here, "Then he reached for the hunk of bread, wrapped in a piece of clean cloth, and holding the cloth at chest level so that not a crumb should fall to the ground, began to nibble and chew at the bread. The bread which he had carried under two garments had been warmed by his body. The frost hadn't caught it at all. More than once during his life in the camp, Zhukov had recalled the way they used to eat in his village. Whole saucepans of potatoes, pots of porridge, and, in the early days, big chunks of meat. And milk enough to split their guts. That wasn't the way to eat, he learned in camp. You had to eat with all your mind on the food. Like now, nibbling the bread bit by bit, working the crumbs up into the paste with your tongue and sucking it into your cheeks. And how good it tasted, that soggy black bread." Zhukov isn't a man who self-pities at all. He seems to make the most of everything, and he's thankful for what he has. Not just food, but you know, if he finds any little bits of metal he can use as a tool. He finds a kind of an old broken hacksaw blade at one point in the book, which he kind of treasures, and he carries around this spoon he'd fashioned at a previous camp. All these things are like gold dust for Zhukov, and he's resourceful, wily, and makes the most out of anything which presents itself to him. And the other theme, work, is just absolutely central to this novel. I mean, it is a kind of forced labour camp, so you'd expect that. But Zhukov loves to work, despite the fact that he has to. He just relishes the work. I mean, the thing he's scared of most is being locked up in cells where he can't work, and he's just left by himself and with nothing to do. That's hell for Zhukov. And you know, when they get to the power station, you know, the heart of the book, Zhukov just throws everything into building this wall. And he just loves being part of this team, being led by Tyurin, who's like this father figure to him and the rest of the gang. At this point of the book, he's supposed to go, and he's kind of hanging around. He wants to finish this wall, and he's supposed to be gone. And he says, ran to the back and looked about. That's the wall where he was working. Not bad. Then he ran and gave the wall a good look over, to the left, to the right. His eye was as accurate as a spirit level, straight and even. His hands were as young as ever. He dashed down the ramp. he's so proud of his work, and he just puts so much energy into it, you know, and he wants to stay there all night and finish this stuff. You know, in such terrible conditions. I mean, the mortar they bring up to construct the wall he's working on, you know, if it's left too long, it freezes. It's that cold, you know. So work is everything to Zhukov. And the interesting thing about A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich is that despite the hardship, despite the hunger, the want, the cold, and despite the injustice he's faced, because he's been locked up in this place cruelly and, you know, just on these trumped up charges of insulting old whiskers, as Stalin is called in this book. He has a sense of joy of a day well lived. When he settles down to bed right at the end of the book, he says, but he'd had such a good day, he felt in such good spirits, that somehow he wasn't in the mood for sleep yet. And then he goes on to say a prayer. Religion's another kind of theme in this book, kind of a subsidiary theme. He sleep in the hut. He sleeps near this guy Alyosha, who is this Baptist. He's a kind of a fervent, born-again Christian type, and he's always reading his Bible, which he smuggled into the camp, and he sees very much his imprisonment as something deserved, something, I suppose, which could purify him spiritually. And Zhukov kind of has an admiration for him in his faith, and you sense that Zhukov, in his own way, is religious as well. And he says a prayer at the end of the day: "Glory be to thee, O Lord, another day over. Thank you, I'm not spending tonight in the cells. Here it's still bearable." So yeah, I think this book, you know, it's really powerful because it's not as binary and as black and white and as clear-cut as you'd expect it would be. You know, someone said, oh, you're going to read a novel about the Gulag, you'd expect it to be unremittingly grim and full of suffering, which this is, of course, but there's a sense of human spirit not being bowed in this book, and of Zhukov, even Denisovich Zhukov, making the most of what he's got, even if it isn't much, and even if he's been dealt a terribly cruel blow in life. And I think that's where the power of this book lies. And when it was published, of course, in 1961 in the Soviet publication Novy Mir, it must have just touched the hearts of so many people who'd been through similar experiences through the terrors of Stalinist USSR. Thanks for watching. There's just a brief slideshow just summarising the things I've just been talking about, and all the best. Bye.